It is now 5 o'clock, the time for the work session on the CIP, community, whatever. And I'm going to be turning this over to Kyle, or to you?
First. Me first.
Okay, you first.
Yes, thank you. So as you have before you, the legislative priorities for 2024, if she has not joined us yet, Diane Bloomer will be joining us via Zoom. She's actually in Washington, DC, but she has the priorities, and I've spoken with her about them in case she's unable to join us. As you can see, we put together a document in your packet, this document here, and that's what Kyle and I will be working from. I first wanted to speak to you about before Kyle takes over with the technical information about each project, the Sterling Highway and Birch Street safety improvements. And this, as you know, during the summer, there was a complete streets project that began, and the project continued on, and we want to take it to the next level as far as continuing on. And for me, that means speaking with our legislators and ultimately DOT about pedestrian safety. As we know, DOT, their job is to move vehicles, and they do a good job at that, getting vehicles through communities. The complete streets, and then our desire is when they're in Soldotna, slow the vehicles down for one thing, but also ensuring that our pedestrians can cross safely we're focusing on Birch Street at this intersection here, but from Birch Street across Sterling, obviously into the park area and the other side of the highway. As I said, DOT does a great job of moving vehicles, but we want to work with them their narrative is changing. I do believe that, but we want to further that and focus in on the narrative of safety, pedestrian safety, and continue having these conversations. So there is a request in the legislative priorities there, but with the ultimate goal of changing the narrative and continuing having these conversations. So that way, not only Soldotna, but other communities with the highway right down the center of it can work together with DOT for pedestrian safety. So I did want to explain that, why that's there. And then the technical portion of the things. Our newest recipient of the Chamber of Government Award will go into technical of the other projects. Kyle.
All right, thank you. I will really kind of do a broad level overview of each project. Nearly all of the projects, all except one, really were identified in the 5-year CIP. And probably the first thing I should do is just a real brief overview of capital planning and projects at the city. Every year prior to the annual operating budget discussions, internally at the city, we begin discussing the 5-year capital plan, which is the long-range planning document that identifies priority projects over the next several years. It helps us identify our needs, helps us balance manpower, financial expenditures, et cetera. It's also a document that we use for future planning and grant applications, et cetera, including the next phase in the annual process, which is the capital budget, which is where we actually appropriate funding to accomplish certain projects. And sometimes a lot of times it's projects off of the CIP. Sometimes it could be unique projects. And then about this time of the year or a little bit earlier in the fall, we produced this document, which is our legislative priorities. Again, a subset of planning projects that we have identified as a need in our community. And in this case, we have emphasized projects that are urgent, such as a roof repair that we know that we're going to need to take care of in a short time frame, but really focusing on projects that have regional impacts, regional importance, not just, City of Soldotna, because the legislative priority list is something that we will transmit to our state and federal delegation. We will input it into the legislative finance system so that folks in Juneau can see what capital project priorities the City of Soldotna has identified. And if we're asking for state and federal funding, we feel that choosing projects that have a regional influence are appropriate. So, for example, Marydale, it may seem like it's just a city street, but I can promise you that city residents are a minority user of Marydale. You know, it serves SoHi, the post office, the medical district, and hospital, et cetera. So it really is a road of regional importance that we think is prudent to receive some state funding. So that's kind of my intro spiel just in the CIP process, and I've only used up like, oh, there we go, an extra minute. And I'll just probably go one by one through these projects and kind of give a broad description. I am happy to pause and take questions at any point, you know, during this presentation, and keep it fairly informal. So what we have in the packet is a traditional memo and resolution that identifies about 8 projects. Again, all but one pulled from the existing CIP that has gone through the public process and formal adoption by council. The one new project is the Memorial Park improvements. I'll do my best to identify those, but we do have a Memorial Park working group that collaborated to identify those needs. And we have a member here sitting in front of the computer screen and over here that could elaborate further if needed. So first project is K Beach Road and Arena Avenue signalization study. This is something that we've talked about for many years at the city as the city has grown, as our Soldotna Regional Sports Complex, Soldotna Sports Center, as it was formerly called, has grown in use. As everybody knows, during large events, turning movements is difficult out of there. We also recognize that Centennial Park Road is in a pretty terrible location. Its proximity to the intersection of Sterling Highway and K Beach. So there's potential to incorporate traffic alleviation by building the signal here. Additionally, besides just the vehicular issues, there's a lot of non-motorized activity in this area. I think there's at least 3 trail systems that coincide there. We have a very popular trail system in the back of the sports complex that you'd be surprised. I have been surprised at how much use it gets. You know, our trail system below the bluff and into Centennial has 2 access points behind the ice rink in that area, and they are used daily. I would hazard a bet there's a couple of cars parked there right now, and it's something we've worked with on our dealt with on our Fieldhouse project, and will continue to do to maintain access. And then the Unity Trail that connects the city of Kenai and K Beach, et cetera, Salteshi Trail system. So it's a very active confluence of non-motorized and vehicular movement. Pretty clear that signalization would be a major improvement. However, the process to do that is not simplistic, and it's very costly. And you can see that what we're asking for is over 900,000 in essentially study funds. We submitted a raise grant to the federal government to produce a study that would come up with the warrants that are required to identify the need for signalization. Much of what and City Manager Bauer just kind of hinted at, the collaboration with DOT and working on making improvements to highways and national highways, et cetera. Very stringent rules and regulations, and need to make sure that traffic warrants and requirements are truly justified and met. So that's step one, is to demonstrate that the signal is indeed needed by accidents and traffic rates and traffic volumes and pedestrian movements and things of that nature, and then seek construction funding. So we felt that this was a fairly regional project in nature, and would be a good project to include in our legislative priority list.
Were we supposed to jump in with questions
Absolutely.
about these items at any point in time?
Yep.
I just had a couple of questions on this. First of all, the cost kind of surprised me. I guess I probably shouldn't be surprised with projects like this, that we're looking at spending $1 million just to plan to spend substantially more to build the intersection when this likely determines that we do need an intersection there. The most comparable project that comes to mind for me is the one down by Birch near the park. Was there a study required for that intersection before we could put that one in? And if so, what was the cost on that?
The city was the project sponsor, and the state took it over. So the city did not have to produce the documents required to justify the need for that signalization, but I presume the state did indeed go through those motions and produce that at a substantially cheaper cost, I'm sure, at that time, using their resources.
Got it. How common is it for the state to pick up projects like that and cover the planning process themselves rather than having the responsibility lay with the cities?
I think it depends on the need and the justification, right? So if there's a safety or a need that's known and identified, then it gets on their radar. Certainly we have supported, including projects like this on the STIP, a statewide transportation improvement program, which is a required document for the state to receive the federal funds. But there needs to be documented needs. And we may talk about that a little bit more with the Sterling Highway and Birch safety improvements and the struggle of pedestrian safety and establishing need by having accidents and waiting till there's accidents. So I see your question, Jordan, which is, do you wait for issues and accidents to justify it, or do you spend the, yeah. So I think it's common to see projects picked up by the state, but I think I think they can be picky and choosy, and it needs to be a really big, obvious need, substantiated by crash statistics that I think mostly crashes.
Got it. And then my follow-up question, which sounds like you've already answered, is there any way around the study to justify need before we move on and do this? Or I'm just exploring the possibility where if we decide that we want to move forward with an intersection there and there's need, and I think we all know that there is a very clear need in that area. Is there any mechanism by which we can just save $1 million, skip the study, and build the intersection we all know we need?
I'm going to not waiver on this one, so I can waiver on other questions. And no, there's no way we
I
cannot.
assume not, but I just had to ask the question.
Yeah, no, very stringent jurisdiction with DOT, and part of their steadfast adherence to rules and regulations is it's it's a national highway corridor. They've got responsibility for safety themselves, so they don't want to step out of bounds without,
Of course,
demonstrating that they've identified the need. So yeah, unfortunately, we will have to go through these motions. Yeah,
makes sense. Thank you.
As part of the conversation with DOT and with our legislators is that where we absolutely desire this signalization, it is on their highway, and perhaps we could work together that they can, do the study as well. But because it is such a big need, we want to move it forward to them and have the conversations with them.
Thank you.
Is there any plans in the future through DOT in expanding and enlarging K Beach?
not that I'm aware of.
Last summer, along K Beach, there was the light at Gaswell, and then further down the road by Echo Lake, where they put those 2 traffic lights in. Were those initiated by DOT, or were those initiated by local residents? Because this seems to be a more intense area than those 2 locations, and I was surprised when DOT picked those areas for putting in traffic lights.
I'd have to confirm with research, but I do know that the other ones were in the STIP because I happened to comment on the Gaswell one personally, not wearing my city hat. So I know that they were in the statewide transportation improvement plan through the state. So whether or not the state initiated that and put it in, or it was nominated through some other fashion. I don't know, but I do know that it was on the STIP, whereas this project is currently not.
And to put it on the STIP would be just as long a process as doing the study, right?
If not more, probably, yeah. Yep. Again, stringent criteria for getting a project on the STIP and nominations. And we have a project that is vying for CTP programming on the STIP as well right now, that's been in limbo for several years. So, could be a long process, yes. Okay, if no other questions on that one, we'll move ahead. The Sterling Highway and Birch Street safety improvements, as the city manager noted, we embarked on a Safe Streets Complete Streets. That's later in the agenda. Safe Streets, a Complete Streets program, collaborating with DOT, and we chose this intersection due to its proximity to Salt Lake Creek Park and its pedestrian movement and activity. The collaboration with DOT was challenging for a number of different reasons, but the improvements we were seeking were sometimes outside of that tried and true and established protocol and process, which was one objective of this collaboration, was to be able to achieve pedestrian and complete street improvements where boundaries existed, which is like interagency stuff. So we weren't able to make very many physical changes out there that we wanted to. We did install a pedestrian counter, and we did make some changes to some timing, some pedestrian crossing timing, so that we did achieve some goals. But there were many other identified physical changes to the intersection that we would like to continue to pursue. You'll note in here we added a sentence or two about the governor's declaration of pedestrian safety and the state's emphasis on pedestrian safety. I think we've all seen news reports in Anchorage and other places where it continues to be a problem, and they want to address it before there are accidents and fatalities, et cetera. Some of the improvements that we're considering and would like to make out there include delineators placed in the highway, unique crosswalk markings that really pop out and are different than what you'd see at a traditional crosswalk, that are still effective, as well as some specialized banners that bring motorists' attention to the unique intersection that it is, particularly on Wednesday afternoons and Wednesday in the park and things of that nature. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer them. We do have, John was a leader in that project and participated at length with DOT and our consultant, Smart Growth America.
Is there any possibility that traffic signal at that intersection could be programmed in such a way that it stops traffic all four directions at the same time, so pedestrians have the ability to go both directions?
The technology exists. We explored diagonal crosswalks, even installation of diagonal crosswalks. There are traffic ramifications, anything you do that propagate up and down the highway. There's green banding already. Sometimes you'll notice that, at least I do, since I am involved in transportation engineering, that sometimes you get all greens, and then sometimes, by golly, you're getting all reds. And yeah, it's purposeful, queuing up traffic and creating gaps for turning movements and things of that nature. And then particularly in the summer when we have heavy traffic. So to answer your question, Mary, yes, it's possible. Under the Smart Growth America Complete Streets Academy process, we whittled down our hopes and desires to what we thought were achievable short-term demonstration projects. So I think we pretty quickly took that one out of the list. That's something we may revisit and relook at the challenges associated with stopping traffic in all four ways and allowing for pedestrian movement. One of the things we're learning everyone, all agencies are learning, and the objective of our relationship with Smart Growth America was to rethink about prioritization in certain areas. It's always been vehicle priority first, but in some circumstances, it may be important to switch that mentality and think about pedestrian vehicle first. But it does have, like I said, downstream effects significantly. So it's something that we will look back into, and that's one of the purposes of including this project is to continue our relationship with DOT and the state to actually implement some of these complete street ideas.
Well,
Okay. Marydale Avenue improvements. I touched on this briefly, again, a high dollar project. This is probably a good point for me to pause and just talk a little bit broadly about our legislative priorities. One of the other things we try to do is incorporate a broad category of projects that we request funding for, all priorities, but we try to touch on safety related projects, probably maybe public safety that involve, police or fire, streets, some buildings, energy, like the roof. And then as well as a broad array of cost magnitude. So projects that are, fairly inexpensive to projects that are very expensive. And the reason is we want to maximize our chance for success if there are, if funding sources open up or negotiations of some nature occur to where a certain district may have an opportunity to get assigned funds. We want to be able to have projects that meet those criteria. So it's kind of the shotgun effect, if you will. I don't want to dilute the urgency and the need and the selection of our projects, but there is some aspect in project selection that pertains to a broad array of both cost and types of projects. So Marydale Avenue, again, like I spoke about earlier, we feel that this is a major collector. It's a regional street. We know that most students that attend school in the city of Soldotna come from outside the city of Soldotna. We know that the hospital generates a significant amount of traffic. And we love to have everybody come to Soldotna, and we love the proliferation of our commercial district. But it comes at a cost, right? Our infrastructure and the wear and tear. I remember in an annexation discussion, we had an old timer that said, "Hey, I'm kind of getting on a sidebar here, but speaking against annexation, said, hey, I've been coming to Soldotna for 40 something years, been getting my mail in Soldotna for 40 something years. I just don't want to be in Soldotna." And the response was, well, for 40 something years, the city's been plowing the street and maintaining the road and lighting the path to the post office. And so my point is Marydale Avenue and Binkley and some of our collectors really serve a regional purpose, and the city of Soldotna owns and maintains that. And of course, we benefit from those visitors that come to the city greatly. But we feel like it'd be a good project for state funding to collaborate on the improvements. Some of those improvements, obviously in the picture here, you see what's likely a little bit of a berry pit or some organic material that's decayed under the bike path and the sidewalk. It's got old asphalt sidewalks. There's large portions of the asphalt that are failing. And so it really needs a complete makeover, well over a mile long. So it's pretty expensive, but it would completely resurface the road as well as improve the sidewalks on both sides. So a fairly expansive transportation project.
Question on the sidewalk rebuild with this project. I'm assuming you'd be doing 6 or 8 foot sidewalks on both sides as part of it. Would that be the intent?
I'm gonna look in here and see if I put the sidewalk width. I don't know that we identified in our planning documents the exact width yet, but I can tell you that our newer design criteria include significantly wider sidewalks.
So my follow-up to that is with the expansion of the width of the sidewalks, would you be narrowing the bike and vehicle lanes, or would you be growing out into a right of way that hasn't yet been built on adjacent properties?
We would stay wholly within the existing right of way. We
Okay.
would not plan on any right of way phase or acquisition. The typical section and bike lane, sidewalk, vehicular lane, still somewhat to be determined. We're actually going through that process a little bit on Readout and Smith Way, which we applied for and received a CTP grant that the state is going to be designing and constructing on our behalf. And we've been working with them, John and myself and others at the city on what that template looks like. And we've emphasized that we need to get it right because it's likely to be replicated elsewhere in the city. And there's a lot of examples that we can look at and how we want to proceed. So I would, in this project, for example, that's going to be an important phase of the project, which is to figure out exactly what that template looks like.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you probably one of the leading things is the skinning up the vehicular lanes based on traffic speeds that we probably don't need excessively wide vehicle lanes. So, which leaves extra room for things on the periphery. Okay, the next one, well C treatment upgrade. This is a utility project. We thought we wanted to make sure that we included a utility related project on the legislative priority list. Real simply, well C produces the large portion of our drinking water supply that's distributed about our network. There's actually 2 wellheads, 1 well house. This project would incorporate new treatment. You know, right now we disinfect and then distribute that water. This would add some treatment aspect to it, targeting iron and manganese, secondary contaminants that are aesthetic in nature. But it would have a benefit of better looking water. It also would likely reduce the amount of flushing that we need to do. We add a product to inhibit corrosion and keep things in suspension. This would alleviate that. So it may improve the water quality in terms of aesthetics. And then another potential outcome is improvements in our wastewater treatment plant, because most of the water that we receive in our wastewater treatment plant is stuff that we've pumped out of the ground and pumped through our pipes, through other people's pipes that then come through our pipes and back to the wastewater treatment plant. So elimination of some metals could be beneficial in that respect as well. So there's enough positive attributes that we have explored this opportunity and identified a funding or a cost amount. And so this is kind of a fun project for me anyway. Any questions on that one? No. Okay. I'm trying to speed up a little bit. Mechanic shop roof replacement. This one's pretty self-explanatory. We've got a great photo on the right there. You can see how it's not melting uniformly. And on the left, those are not representative photos. Those are actual photos. We had a architectural and engineering report, and it was pretty clear that the building and structure is still serviceable for many more decades, but the roof is completely shot. You can see also there was a repair attempted with Belzona, I think. And so we can add no more dead load to it. The cost is wrapped up in a brand new roof. There's really not a repair option. It's new roof time. So, and lo and behold, roofs are fairly expensive, but this shop is critical to everything that maintenance does and others. They maintain the fleet for the parks and rec. So if you see the folks out watering the flowers, they're running an equipment maintained at this shop. Our graders that take care of the snow and sanders that go around the city. So not a very exciting and unique project, re-roofing, but you see them in capital budgets and legislative capital budgets because they're important. So.
Vice Mayor Quirk.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Quick question, Kyle. Based on the snow loads from the last couple of years and what we've been getting this year, is that continuing to exacerbate the problem?
I would say yes and no. It's exacerbating the problem in the sense that there are drips that our mechanics and others have to deal with. It's not exacerbating the problem because the roof is so shot and so energy inefficient that it just melts a lot of it right off and flows into the. So from a structural perspective, it hasn't been a problem. We were worried about it and got up there and went, well, there's no snow up here. So for now. So it's a roof that needs, yeah. Yes, we are getting plenty of drips. The next project is a fun and exciting project complete with renderings that make us want to buy it right now. The conference room expansion at the regional sports complex. This is something that we've talked about for many, many years. We've funded some preliminary studies, and you can see the conceptual drawings there on the page. This would fund the design of the conference room expansion. And then based on that design and a firm understanding of the cost, we would then seek construction funding. Again, a project that we believe is of regional importance and would ring true to a lot of different, not just legislators, but users statewide. A lot of folks use that facility.
Kyle, when we were looking at the field house, didn't we also have some design done for this by that original architectural firm?
That's correct. Yes, we do have the new entry / pre-function area that would and it is designed and it was designed as part of the entry for the field house, but also would be used as an entry for this new expanded conference rooms, and includes robust restroom facilities that are more conducive to a conference room than a hockey locker room. So that part is designed, but that's just up in the entryway front and doesn't
We
have
didn't do anything on the conference rooms and the kitchen and all of that.
nothing more than the preliminary conceptuals.
Okay,
Correct.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have some preliminary discussion and numbers on what size a commercial kitchen should be, and occupancy types and ranges for a conceptualized conference room expansion. This would start from not scratch, but just some of the concepts, and then go to the actual design, get to a 95% design level. So it would be shovel ready. Back to some streets and maintenance. This is winter sand cover structure. This would be a clear span. You can see in the picture down below, that's an example photo. A clear span fabric covered structure, simply keeping the weather and elements off of our traction sand that we use heavily throughout the city. You see the sanding trucks going around and then the sweepers going around picking it up. But it's increasingly a challenge with the freeze thaw cycles that we see. The picture above is an actual picture. I think I took that picture a week ago. You can see how we've got just ice and chunks. So this would be, in talking with our streets crews and Scott, this would be one of the number one beneficial improvements to their operations, the ability to get good, clean sand and get it into their sander and get it on the streets quickly and efficiently. So also a good project that we thought might be a topic of discussion in Juneau this year, snow removal and winter operations. So decided we'd incorporate that into our legislative priorities.
Question on this one. So in this page, it mentions that they're currently blending salt into the sand to help keep it to where it can be workable. I know there's been a lot of community interest in reducing salt on the roads this winter. If we were to build the structure, would one of the results be that we're no longer blending salt into the sand as a result?
Very possible. That's something we would definitely look into. If nothing else, a reduction in the amount of salt that gets blended in there. And we did debate whether or not we left the word salt in the commentary.
Okay, thanks.
Next project is the Memorial Park improvements. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a Memorial Park working group that was put together and consists of a number of city employees across different departments. And they identified a number of improvements that are important out at the Memorial Park. I won't go through them. You read them individually. I'll let John or Johnny elaborate further if there's some specific questions, like how many exact columbarium niches are left, because I don't remember, but I can tell you that I was here when we lobbied the borough, and the borough provided the land to the city, and the city committed to and has held true and is happy to provide this park borough-wide. So this is not a City of Soldotna cemetery. It's a memorial park for our whole community. And as such, that's one of the reasons that we've included in our legislative priorities, again, is that it's a regional facility that we think partnering with others in capital costs is prudent. Any questions on that? I mean, I'm going real quick. The columbarium we purchased, there's one there. It's the original one that we purchased when we established the Memorial Park. I guess it says right there, 16 remaining available. Thanks, Johnny. How thorough, clerk. We recently completed minor expansions. We did a Veterans Memorial expansion. We did a West Side expansion already. To the right, you can see the master plan build out. That's not what it looks like today. You can see the different phases. Phase 1 and phase 2 have been done. A very small portion of no, that's about it. So this funding would go to improve our cemetery.
Where would the columbarium go? Same place as the current one? And what about the pavilion?
The original design included the earthwork and base for 3 columbariums. So it would go adjacent to the existing one, and the pavilion is largely located in the original design location as well.
I see it now.
Yep.
It's very small writing and
Yeah.
very old eyes.
Yeah. Yep. And moving on to kind of the last project, police building exterior repair. This is something that has been around for a while. This is one of our lower cost projects. It's a public safety project, being the police department. The building was constructed in 1995 and has a stucco type ephes exterior that has, if you look closely, we should have got some close-up pictures. It has a significant amount of discoloration, and then some of the flashing and parapet needs painting and refinishing. So it's one of our older buildings, not too old, but it needs a refurbishment of the outside. We really should have got some more decrepit photos. But yeah, you can see if you look at the sign, it looks a little dark up there. So this is one of our maintenance items that we thought would be good to include in our legislative priorities as well. So pretty basic project, but would make a difference to our police building. And that is the last project on our legislative priority list. There's a resolution and memo in your packet today on the consent agenda, I believe. I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or if there's some changes that folks want to see, we would need to make those today. Also in the packet is the color poop sheet that Laura Reiner put together. It contains, all these great photos. This is something that the city would bring to Juneau and leave with legislators as kind of the arts and craft and not just the engineering spreadsheet that I put together.
Vice Mayor Parker.
This isn't a question for Kyle, but a question for Diane Bloomer, if I can do that. So as we're looking at the upcoming legislative session and dollars that might be available for capital projects. Can you talk about that, Diane? Did you hear me? We can't hear you. You're frozen.
I don't know what kind of
Great.
dollars. I anticipate that a budget will be out tomorrow, I think. All right, am I better?
I'll have a good connection. It doesn't sound like.
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
that's better.
Okay. So I don't have a great answer for that, Lisa. I anticipate that the governor's budget will be out tomorrow or Friday. And so we should have a better understanding of what capital items look like. But you know, through the legislative session that the capital items are typically considered after all the operating budget stuff is put together. So we will be getting the forecast from the Department of Revenue. Man, I don't know if they're going to do an updated forecast or not until the spring, but there will be a little bit of funding out there. I know that there's a lot of talk about energy and modernizing the rail belt, and there's some federal funding that was given to the state to upgrade the rail belt from Homer to Matsu. But the state will have to come up with a $206 million match, 206.5. So I know there's a lot of talk about that and how they're going to come up with that funding. So I can't really give you a good answer on the capital dollars that will be available, but we should have a better picture here by the end of the week. And if I could, I would just like to say too, Kyle's right when he said we should have an array of projects with varying funding asks, because typically at the end of the session, when they're trying to figure out where the last dollars, if there are any, may go, they'll try to fund something for communities, and each legislator tries to bring something home for their community. So typically I would encourage about 6 to 8. This list is a little bit longer, but it's got a lot of smaller projects on it. So I think it's a good solid list. But I would encourage, Kyle, maybe you and I can talk, and Jeanette, but to pick at least 3 top items, and we'll have an elevator speech for those 3 top items. And we'll put them all in capsus, but at least have 3 that if they say, what do you really want out of this list? We're ready to tell them.
Any other further questions from the council for either the city manager or Kyle? Go ahead.
If I may, first, thank you to Kyle and his team for all of the detail work and the department heads who supplied the information. And as you can tell, Kyle spoke about the regional significance, and we felt pretty firm on that, our desire to bring that forward because of all of the use that occurs in our city because of the being regional. Kyle's comment, you made the comment that technology is there when you asked a question. And that, again, goes back to conversations that we plan on having about our projects and about our desire to improve safety in our community, pedestrian safety specifically, and vehicular safety as well. So that's where we ended with choosing these projects because of the regional significance. And Diane, we will have that conversation. The 3 of us will get together and nail things down.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and end this work session now at 5:44 and reconvene for the regular session, council session.